Okay, so we're going to talk about adding shadows, highlights, and we're going to also talk about reflected highlights as well. So I've got in here, and I will put these Photoshop files. Will that help you guys if I add the Photoshop files to Blackboard or something?
Yeah.
Do you want to look at them like broken down so you can turn stuff off and see what I did? Okay, so let's look at this. I've got, let's get rid of some of this stuff here. Textures over top. Okay, here's some shadows. I think we can look at them individually. Let's look at this guy in the front. So I got everything in this one broken down to all separate layers, just in case, and really it's more in case you make a mistake, I guess. Then it's much easier just to delete that whole layer, or if whatever you're doing, you're just like, I am done. What is this? Delete it, start again. And it's much easier just to delete one layer, or it's going to be, easier to let it go if it's just a tiny layer with a few shadows on it. And I did it per animal just because there's so many of them involved in this scene, and I just didn't want to get too confused by all the different characters that were going on, so I can look at them individually. So let's just look at this. Where did I see in the map? Okay, so I got line work. So where you guys should be is that you've got your sketch all done. Hopefully you colored in maybe some colored in lines or changed the color of the lines, and then added color on the back. Now, okay, let me get rid of this. Let me just give him some new color so we'll be caught up to speed and it's not as confusing. So I'll make him a brown and quickly go in and give him a bit of color back here. I was going to look a little bit different than what I originally had. And when you're doing your strokes to fill all this stuff in, you can think about moving them in the direction of, now this is too crazy, what is going on? See, so I make a flub, or I could just delete it. All right, let's go at it again. So my opacity, I just found it was getting too overlappy. I don't want it that much overlap. And actually, you can go outside of the lines. This is a technique that you would use in regular painting as well. In regular, if you're doing oil paints or acrylics, I do this often in my work, is just you can kind of go outside of the line. And what you would do if you were doing a painting, let's make this look a little bit like fur, then you would go and take the outside color and paint that on the outside edge to kind of make it a little bit crisper. But let me go outside a little bit more here. This is just for speed. Yeah. You can look like a little bit like fur, or at least have a bit of textures in there. Now, once I'm done, I can go back in, and there's all these little parts that are going out. It's okay to color outside of the lines. I don't know if anybody ever told you that. That's okay. But if you don't want it to go outside of the lines, then you can quickly go in, and it's much easier to color outside of the lines to get these textures that you want, and then you can go back in and erase out the edges. And you can make your eraser brush as small as you need to, and to get it nice and crisp. So this could be a good idea. I know it doesn't make too much sense for a dog, but I used it a lot on the Artemisia sketch for these parts coming down or anything that was kind of tiny. I could go outside of the lines and then just erase out the negative space afterwards. Okay, so we got our dog. So then you're going to add in some shadows. So I got mine all done. I just did them all on one layer. It's up to you. You could do them individually for each part or each character if you want. You guys, I think you all only have one character, so I would just do it all on one layer and it should be good. But let's go with that. So I'd make a new layer over top, and you always want to make sure that you label your layers. So I'll put my yellow, sorry, shadow. So real quick, you can go in, and you could do this with like a gray if you wanted, but it's going to look much more realistic and a lot more interesting if you use cool colors for shadows. When I was looking at what Elise was doing, she was going in and she just did everything with the grayscale, but then she went back afterwards and colored it. So you can do 2 steps if that makes it easier to think about it in your head. But I just skip a step. I'll go with something like a dark blue or violet can look nice. So let's try this. And we just test it out. And I'm going to use, just for the shadow layer, I'm going to set it to multiply so that whatever I put on here, we're going to be able to see still my, some of these little sketchy stuff that I put on through it. So I think I'll leave it set to that. But this is where you may want to think about going outside of the lines a little bit. I'm going to make this brush big. And yeah, let's just make it big. This has a little slight airbrushiness to it. The trick with Photoshop is that you don't want to get too airbrushy with the shadows. It's a dead giveaway that something is like novice, I guess. So professional people, you want to kind of have control over that, the airbrushiness. I don't know if you guys have ever seen like something that's just like, this is too Photoshop-y, and it's that airbrush quality. So the more that you can be kind of thinking, oh, that's actually quite nice. I might go in and change what I had before. Yeah, but I think it's too thick. So I'll get rid of all those. Let's start again and maybe lower the opacity a bit. And maybe I switch my brush to something more, oh, this is why. I'm using a textured brush. But let's just go back to our old original default. Let's go basic. Get some more bit airbrushy. There we go. So these ones where you're going to see a little bit fuzziness, that's the airbrush. I'll try. Oh, so I want something big, and I'm just going to go in and just do it fairly quickly. Okay, so there's not going to be shadows over here. This is where the light's coming in, so there's probably going to be shadows under here, under the dog, and the backs of his paws. And you can see I'm just being very blasé about this whole thing. And I'm going outside of the lines. Let's do this. Maybe he's got a little bit of shadow back here, definitely under the ear, and probably on this side of the ear, maybe. So if we've got light coming in on this side, maybe here. And yeah, let's just go full force with his butt. So I've gone outside of the line so that I can get this nice airbrushy feel on the edge here, but I still don't want to keep that outside the lines. So I'll go in and with my hard eraser, I can go in and just get it so that it's going to go right to the lines. And I can make it larger to do it a little bit quicker. Whoops, I did a little flub there. But I can always undo or go back to the history and get rid of it. Here we go. And I'm only erasing on the shadow layer. So if I erase over here, it's not going to do anything to my color. It's just only going to erase the shadow out. I guess I got to get a little bit smaller to get in there. And, oh, I guess I will fix my little things that are going outside of here as well. Okay. So once you have the shadows put on, I would do all the shadows all, over everything. Then you can start to add highlights. I was getting brave and I was adding some highlights just onto my regular color layers, but it was only as in a way to save on layers for me because I just had so many worked up. And since I was doing it per dog, I wasn't too concerned about, being able to go back. I knew I would be able to go back enough times in the history to allow me to have the flexibility of if I want to not do that to take it out, and it'll be okay. But you can always just do it on another layer. Label it again, so I call it my highlights. And what you want is you're going to want to select, you know, the hue that you have for the local color, and you're going to do this by making it up so that it has a little bit more mixture with white. I'll get the highlight colors. All right. So on a separate layer, this is what it'll look like. I could go in with this sort of stuff. Is this on my separate layer now? I'm like, yeah, okay, we're good. So I can go in, add some highlights in here. Now it's over my line, that's why I'm getting this, the line is starting to get darker, but I just need to put my line over top of these highlights and we're good to go. So maybe some, I don't know, the side of the dog here is getting lit up. So then I can go in and just, same deal. What did I do? All right, I did a mistake here. I think I just put those on the wrong layer. So that's one of the things you got to always make sure that you're dealing with the right layer when you're going with the multiple layers. Let me see what I did. I think I'm good. Okay, so make sure that I'm on the right spot and go back in and add those in. Then you can go back and erase the edges again. Now you can use the selection tool and then expand your selection if you want to make stuff really precise, like if you're using the pen tool and making vector lines. But we can save that for Flash because I'll show you a much easier way to do stuff in Flash. All right, so we got highlights, we got these shadows. This looks not too bad. You also want to make sure that you're adding cast shadows underneath. You can do this on the same layer, or you can, if you have it broken up as much as I do, like I have a background layer, then my characters, I would put it, I actually have it, the cast shadows, let's see here, on a another layer over top of my color for the background. So I just went in and did a bunch of, you know, airbrushy cast shadows over everything. And this is also, oh no, it's not multiplied. I just lowered the opacity so you can see through stuff. So once we have this is the little trick that's going to make it pop. I can do it on my highlight layer, and I want it to be, there's going to be two colors that you're going to use. You're going to use a very bright yellow or an orangey yellow. It's not bright enough for me. Something like, let's try this orange. And I just want it to be more yellowy though. So something like this color is going to be perfect. And I want to use a brush that's going to be not as airbrushy. So we're going to add some reflected light highlights, and that's what's going to make it like pop off the page. This, I'm going to switch my brush to one of those fun, I don't know that. So it's under brush presets here. So I'm going to switch my brush to, I downloaded some dry brush. The other thing that works well is like a charcoal brush or something to that effect. So we're going to get a bit of a crisper line. So I got something like this, which is a charcoal line. If I look at it in the brush. And just make it a little bit bigger. I'll test it out. Oh, that's pretty good. Now, I've got the opacity lower, but I don't want it too low. That's much better. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in and add these super highlights onto the tips of things. Wherever you're going to get a lot of light coming in. So let's try, now did I make a new layer? I could put it on this highlight layer and that would be fine. But if you're concerned about, oh, I got my highlights in there, they're all nice and perfect. Yeah, do it. You can do it on another layer as well. It should be fine. Okay. So I'll call these the reflective. And I think that needs to be a bit brighter. So I want a nice bright, like orangey yellow. So we'll go in and you're gonna have just a little smidgen on the edge here. So maybe there, just a little bit. Wherever your highlights are or where you think they're gonna be super intense. And then same thing, I would just go back and erase out wherever I've kind of gone out of the lines. Oops. And then last but not least, there's going to be a reflected light that's going to happen in the shadow as well. And that you're usually going to want to use something that's like a very bright turquoise. Something like this. Why is it not letting me pick? There we go. We want it to be very bright. Adjust some of the leather. There we go. Oh, that's perfect. So these are the two colors that we're going to do the finishing up with. So there, you want to add it where you're going to see maybe some reflected light where there's going to be shadows. Well, maybe not so much in the butt. That's okay. And they're slight. Something like this, something like that. Maybe something there. You don't have to go overboard with these things, but they're just a nice little highlight addition. And then we can go out and erase everything, whatever's outside of the lines. And I can get rid of that. So if we're looking at my finished version, some of this stuff. Everything else. So you can see all the slight little blues on there. I'm missing one for this guy. And then I just went in and I found a texture. I should have showed you guys that. This is my this is the texture. No, I got it on multiply. Okay, well, this is it normally, but it was a texture that just had a white background with some grainy stuff to it. It's nice to add any kind, like a light texture over top. It can make it look like either you've drawn it on paper is a good one, like old paper, old photograph, if you wanted to add something like that, could be interesting. Hair, if you have something that you're doing with animals, could be something, a nice texture that goes over top. And you just want to set it to multiply so that it will be able to see everything through it. I just used this over my background so to make the characters stand out really a lot, because the background would be textured and they're going to be colored basically flat in the sense that they don't have any texture on them. And then this was my background, so I just had a gradient color for the background, but you guys could also choose to have a texture that you use for the background as well. So it's up to you. Hi, Mike! Oh, now that's going to be on the recording. Well, there we go. Oops. Am I missing something? No. I feel like this guy's missing something now. Yeah, I don't know what happened to his highlights. Oh, there they are. I just had it colored over top of them. So that's it. Any questions? We're good. All right. Did I amaze and impress you guys? Yeah. Okay, I don't know how to shut this off. There we go.